All across this planet, countless ancient mysteries still lie dormant beneath the dust of time, from lost civilizations and colossal structures to legends and unexplained phenomena that no one has ever been able to decipher. Every land, every relic holds stories yet to be unraveled. Are these strange occurrences traces of unknown science, or simply myths passed down through generations? Our journey to explore these mysterious sites will take us from Asia to Africa, from the icy landscapes of Europe to the sun-drenched Americas, peeling back layer after layer of humanity's ancient secrets. Join us as we set out on an adventure into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. So, fasten your seatbelt as we dive into today's mystery. But first, you'll have incredible luck if you like, and subscribe before this video ends. The Hollow Earth theory and the Agartha civilization. Until quite recently, many people around the world believed that the Earth was hollow. This belief in a hollow planet persisted even after most had accepted that the Earth was a sphere. The idea suggested that the surface world we inhabit is merely an outer shell, and beneath that shell lies a vast inner world with its own atmosphere, its own geological wonders, and even an entirely separate civilization. This hidden civilization is known as Agartha, and for a time, it was considered more than just a scientific theory. When the concept was introduced by the scientist Edmund Halley in the 17th century, it gained a level of acceptance as an established truth. The theory quickly spread, and soon, people began to imagine that our planet was made up of multiple layers, with each layer separated by its own atmosphere. Each of these shells was thought to operate independently and to harbor unique creatures and forms of life. Over the centuries, the Hollow Earth theory continued to expand, and even as late as World War II, it was said that the Nazis actively searched for an entrance to this inner world, believing that the Agartha civilization possessed technology that could help them win the war. In fact, a German submarine sailor named Karl Unger even claimed that he had once seen this gateway himself and insisted that the Earth was indeed hollow. Today, however, nearly everything about Agartha is regarded as nothing more than a conspiracy theory. Leap Castle, Ireland. Leap Castle is widely regarded as the most haunted castle in the world. This ancient estate, built during the era of Old Ireland in County Offaly, has stood for more than 7 centuries. It was originally constructed in the 13th century by the O'Bannon family. 200 years later, it was seized in a bloody takeover and became the residence of the O'Carroll clan, a family whose rule would prove to be even more violent and ruthless. The castle continued to pass from father to son, with each generation marked by murders and betrayal, until the 17th century, when the Darby family took control. Afterward, the castle changed hands several more times, and by 1922, it was completely destroyed by fire. For a long period, Leap Castle belonged to those loyal to the British Crown, which fueled the anger of a group of Irish nationalists who ultimately burned it down. With so much death and tragedy surrounding it, Leap Castle is now believed to be haunted by restless spirits. Countless stories tell of ghostly figures appearing within the castle grounds, and there have even been reports of poltergeist activity. The ruins of the chapel, blackened by fire, are said to be the most haunted place of all. The mystery of Blood Mountain, Georgia, USA. Does Blood Mountain truly deserve its chilling name, a place often described as the land of restless spirits? After all, you can't visit a place called Blood Mountain without expecting to encounter at least one ghost or a deranged killer lurking in the shadows. And while it may sound like the perfect setting for the next installment of Friday the 13th, Blood Mountain is very much a real location, a haunting hiking trail tucked within Georgia's Chattahoochee National Forest. Blood Mountain has become a favorite destination for hikers, history enthusiasts, and fans of the supernatural who don't mind sharing the trail with companions from another world. But don't let the name frighten you too much, as there are good reasons behind the stories of battles, hauntings, and mysterious lights that have appeared here after dark. According to Cherokee legend, the mountain earned its name after a brutal battle between the Cherokee and Creek peoples, where so much blood was spilled that it stained the land red. So, if you happen to feel a shiver run down your spine while hiking the slopes, it might just be the spirits of ancient warriors watching you struggle up the mountain. A stretch of the famous Appalachian Trail runs right across Blood Mountain, and countless hikers have claimed to hear mysterious footsteps following behind them, only to turn around and find no one there. Some have even reported catching glimpses of shadowy figures darting between the trees, making the trek feel more unsettling than ever. The trail is also linked to a variety of supernatural phenomena: ghostly apparitions, strange whispers, the feeling of being constantly watched, and even flickering lights atop the mountain on clear nights. Lights that might be UFOs, phantom lanterns, or just a lost traveler with a flashlight. Some scientists attribute these to atmospheric effects, but who really believes the simple explanations when you're standing alone in the heart of a dark, haunted forest? And that's not all. There's even a legend about a witch who once lived on the mountain, cursing anyone foolish enough to disturb her. Locals believe her spirit still wanders the trails, searching for trespassers. If you ever hear a woman calling your name in the woods, it's probably best to run the other way. So what do you think? Is Blood Mountain just a name, or do dark mysteries still haunt its winding paths? Who's ready for a night hike up the mountain? Marud Janjira Fortress, India. Marud Janjira is an ancient fortress in India, renowned for its rich history and the many mysteries that surround it. Today, it stands as a national tourist destination, but in the past, this fortress once protected the local people from attacks by both the British and the Portuguese. The history of Marud Janjira stretches back to the 15th century, with humble beginnings. Fishermen who depended on the sea for their livelihood built a wooden fort on the coastal rocks to shield themselves from pirate raids. This small wooden outpost on the shoreline served as an effective shield, forcing would-be pirates to think twice before launching an attack. Over the years, the fortress was strengthened with watchtowers, larger defensive walls, and equipped with cannons and guns to fire upon any enemies approaching from the sea. It is believed that during its golden age, the fortress boasted at least 572 cannons, turning it into an impregnable island of stone and gunpowder. From within the walls, defenders could fire in any direction with a force unmatched by any ship that dared to approach. However, after centuries as a formidable stronghold, Marud Janjira Fortress has lost much of its former glory. Of the 572 cannons that once stood guard, only 3 remain today. Other attractions at the site include a royal palace, mosques, noble houses, stables, granaries, and a network of underground tunnels. Mount Shasta, California, USA. In Northern California stands a snow-capped volcano known as Mount Shasta, perched on the southern edge of the Cascade Range that stretches from British Columbia through Washington and Oregon. But this volcano is unlike any other mountain in the Pacific Northwest, for it is shrouded in mysteries that scientists may never fully unravel. Every year, around 26,000 visitors flock to the small town at the base of the mountain, shopping for crystals and browsing through bookstores. The town has become a center for those who want to explore the deeper mysteries of the Earth and its hidden energies. Yet, what truly draws people here are the persistent rumors that within this volcano lies a secret crystal city called Telos, said to have been built inside the mountain by the ancient Lemurians. The city was first described in 1864 by zoologist Philip Slater, who believed that a continent named Lemuria had sunk to the bottom of the Indian Ocean thousands of years ago. According to his account, after the continent disappeared, 25,000 surviving souls made their way to Mount Shasta and constructed a magnificent city deep within the mountain. Legend claims that they continue to live there to this day, in perfect isolation from the outside world. Though none of these claims have ever been verified by modern science, the fact remains that many people still believe in a mysterious society hidden within Mount Shasta, even if no one has ever been able to prove it. The supercivilization in Antarctica. Antarctica is without question the most mysterious continent on Earth, and it all comes down to one simple fact. Antarctica is buried under ice. Because no one can see what lies beneath, this place holds an entire world of possibilities waiting to be explored. In fact, some people believe there is evidence suggesting that a prehistoric civilization is still hidden beneath the frozen layers of this continent, remaining undiscovered to this day. This theory is based largely on a map known as the Piri-Reis map, drawn by an Ottoman admiral in the 16th century. The map is remarkable because it depicts a landmass in the southern hemisphere where Antarctica should be, but without any sign of ice. Somehow, an admiral of the Ottoman Empire seemed to know about a continent lying beneath South America long before any Europeans set foot there. And to him, it wasn't a frozen wasteland, it was a perfectly ordinary land. All of this is truly puzzling, since the last time Antarctica was completely ice-free was about 35 million years ago, at least according to mainstream scientists and all the data we have. So, it would seem impossible that a prehistoric civilization could ever have lived in such a remote and inhospitable place. Mount Hekla. In October of 1104, Iceland's Hekla volcano erupted violently and without warning. The mountain sent enormous plumes of smoke and massive streams of lava into the sky. For the settlers living in Iceland at that time, it must have looked like the end of the world, because they had no idea what a volcano even was. That eruption in the 12th century gave birth to a terrifying and mysterious legend. From that day forward, Hekla became known as the Gateway to Hell. The early Icelanders, having only recently settled after centuries of warfare across Europe, believed that the mouth of hell itself had opened on Earth. To them, the ground had split wide and spewed fire into the sky. Even after that first eruption, Icelanders remained deeply fearful of this volcano. Whenever they saw flocks of birds circling the crater, they believed these were souls of the damned, flying to their eternal punishment. In reality, Mount Hekla became such a mysterious and fearsome place that, for centuries afterward, Icelanders believed it was where witches gathered to worship the devil. Horyuji Temple and the lizard person statue in Japan. Horyuji Temple, located in Nara Prefecture, is one of the most mysterious historical sites in Japan. From the outside, this temple appears entirely ordinary, but it once housed a strange statue of a lizard-like being. Some have claimed that this lizard statue is direct evidence of an advanced race that once visited the Earth. The temple itself was one of the 7 great temples of Ikaruga, founded in the year 607 by Prince Shotoku. According to legend, 1,400 years ago, the prince had an encounter with a lizard-like creature from space. After this meeting, he ordered the creation of a statue to honor the being and placed it inside the temple. The statue is said to have resembled a humanoid lizard, with arms and legs like a person, but with the head of a reptile, deep-set eyes, and a lizard-like mouth. The figure also appeared to be wearing some kind of armor or suit wrapped around its body. However, in 2017, the statue was removed from public display at this Buddhist temple. Since then, no one knows exactly what happened to it. Mount Kailash. You know a mountain is truly mysterious when even its nickname can send a chill down your spine. Mount Kailash, also known as the Jewel of Eternal Snow, is an enigma wrapped in snow, mythology, and countless unexplained phenomena. And what's most remarkable is that no one has ever managed to climb this mountain. Towering at an awe-inspiring 21,000 feet, this sacred peak sits at the crossroads of Tibet, Nepal, and India, making it a spiritual center for Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Bon followers alike. From stories of time-warping phenomena to its uncanny resemblance to an ancient pyramid, Kailash is considered the forbidden zone of the Himalayas. In Hindu belief, Mount Kailash is the dwelling place of Shiva and his wife Parvati. It is seen as the center of the universe, a symbol of sacred power, peace, wisdom, and transcendence. Some ancient texts describe its 4 sides as being made of crystal, ruby, gold, and turquoise. Tibetans believe it to be the home of the tantric deity Demchog. Jain followers say their very first spiritual teacher achieved enlightenment on the snow-covered slopes of Kailash. In the ancient Bon religion of Tibet, Mount Kailash is known as Tizé, the sacred abode of the sky goddess Sepaiman. To them, it is the 9-story swastika mountain and the axis connecting the worlds. And when it comes to the swastika, here it refers to the ancient left-facing symbol, representing eternal truth, balance, and the cycles of life. All of this shows that for many different faiths, Kailash is not just a spiritual mountain, but the center of the world. It is a place where gods and enlightened beings choose to reside, connecting heaven and earth and home to powerful spirits, both good and evil. Though it is the dream of many climbers, no one has ever set foot on Kailash's summit. The main reason is that doing so would offend the gods. Beyond that, the mountain is bitterly cold, perilous, and shrouded in rumors that its location shifts constantly, like the moving staircases in Harry Potter, making it impossible to climb. But the real reason is that Kailash is simply too sacred to be conquered. Even China has banned all attempts to scale its summit. According to legend, the only person ever to reach the top was a Tibetan monk named Milarepa, who may have done so with supernatural help. If no one has ever stood atop Kailash, could something extraordinary be hidden up there? It's entirely possible, Some Russian scientists have even suggested that Kailash is actually an ancient man-made pyramid, possibly the largest in the world, mysteriously aligned with other pyramid-like structures across the globe as if connected by invisible lines. This has led to theories about a super-advanced civilization that existed long before written history. According to Buddhist and Hindu scriptures, Kailash is also called the Stairway to Heaven. Some believe that instead of a literal stairway, Kailash could be a stargate, a cosmic portal through which the ancients could instantly travel to distant lands. Ancient texts warn that no one should ever set foot on the summit of Kailash, and that anyone who dares to climb it will suffer divine punishment and never be seen again, as if, upon reaching the peak, a cosmic gateway opens, and that person simply vanishes forever. The gladiator tombs of Anavarza, Turkey. Archaeologists have excavated the ancient city of Anavarza and uncovered some of the rarest tombs of gladiators ever found. These are the final resting places for the remains of men who fought bravely in gladiatorial contests nearly 2,000 years ago. Anavarza was once a prosperous city, ruled successively by the Greeks, Romans, Sassanids, and finally the Ottomans, before it was ultimately abandoned. Today, all that remains are the ruins scattered beneath the cliffs, an entire city now covered in grass and weeds, its lost grandeur echoing through the empty stones. The gladiator tombs were discovered on the southern edge of the city, near the remnants of an ancient arena. According to the excavation team, which includes Dr. Fatih Gulshan from Çukurova University, this arena once hosted gladiatorial games, festivals, aquatic sports, and other forms of public entertainment. It was not just a place of blood and death, but also one of celebration and athletic competition. To this day, no one knows exactly how these gladiators died. They might have fallen in the heat of battle, succumbed to illness, or perhaps some lived long enough to retire and pass away of old age. Yet, with the discovery of an entire cemetery filled with the skeletons of gladiators, it's reasonable to assume that most of them met their end inside the arena. Bonnybridge, Scotland. The small town of Bonnybridge in Scotland is considered one of the world's most mysterious places, not because of ghosts or strange natural phenomena, but because nearly 300 sightings of unidentified flying objects are reported here every year. For the past 3 decades, in this quiet little town in the Scottish countryside, hundreds of UFO encounters have been recorded each and every year. The question is, what makes this place such a hotspot for UFO activity? To this day, there is still no definitive answer. Bonnybridge sits quietly between Glasgow and Edinburgh, in a region that once flourished during the industrial boom of the 1780s. It was during that era that Bonnybridge began to attract attention from those fascinated by the idea of life beyond Earth. The most famous sighting occurred in 1992, when a local businessman named James Walker stopped his car on a rural road because he saw an object hovering just above the ground ahead of him. The object had the appearance of a brilliant, star-shaped light. James watched in awe as the craft suddenly shot straight into the sky at a speed beyond imagination, vanishing like a shooting star in reverse, disappearing back into the universe. After this event, many locals felt more comfortable sharing their own experiences. Even though Bonnybridge's population is small, it continues to hold the record for the highest number of UFO sightings per capita anywhere in the world. Death Valley, Yatinga, India. The small village of Jatinga in India has earned the ominous nickname Death Valley. Nestled in the northeastern state of Assam and surrounded by breathtaking mountains, this place is famous for a mysterious, natural phenomenon that has persisted for centuries. Every year, dozens of bird species plunge into the village and die en masse. Typically, this phenomenon occurs in September, right after the monsoon season, on dark, moonless nights. Up to 44 species of birds living in the area suddenly become frantic and disoriented, then dive straight toward the village lights, crashing to the ground and dying. Even more strangely, the local villagers believe these birds are spirits falling from the sky to bring misfortune, and some will use bamboo sticks to strike down any birds that haven't fallen on their own. Scientists have suggested that the event is the result of a unique combination of strong winds, thick fog, and elevation, which disorients the birds. The lights of the village further confuse them, causing them to dive straight to their deaths. Yet, year after year, the mass bird deaths continue, leaving Jatinga forever shrouded in an unsolved mystery. The underground city of Mardin, Turkey. An archaeological excavation in the province of Mardin Turkey, has uncovered a mysterious underground city, believed to be the largest subterranean settlement ever discovered in the country. Inside a cavern, researchers found passageways that descend deep beneath the earth, forming a maze of water wells, food storage rooms, and living quarters dating back to the 2nd century AD. Archaeologists estimate that this underground city could have accommodated up to 70,000 people, more than most modern cities in North America, and that it once served as a refuge for early Christians fleeing persecution. Over time, more and more families moved underground, and the city grew into a thriving community. Although the tunnels were still in use until just a few decades ago, researchers remain puzzled about why the city was eventually abandoned and how its existence could have been forgotten. This is only one of more than 200 ancient underground cities in Turkey, but it is thought to be the largest, with an entire population once living beneath the surface, far away from the light of the sun. The Lost Mountain City in Greece. Archaeologists have recently discovered a lost city atop a mountain in Greece, one that had never been explored before. This ancient city is estimated to be 2,500 years old and still has no official name. Today, it stands as one of the most mysterious places in all of Greece. The discovery was made by a team of Swedish and Greek archaeologists who traveled 190 miles north of Athens to the Thessalian plain. There, the peak of Strongylovouni rises high into the clouds, and right at the summit are the remnants of a buried city, covering nearly 99 acres. The researchers uncovered towers, crumbling walls, and city gates that once welcomed visitors to the mountaintop. What makes this site even more extraordinary is that, from the foot of the mountain, there is no hint of a lost city hidden above. Based on pottery shards found among the ruins, it is believed that people lived here as early as 500 BC. The city appears to have flourished around 300 BC, only to be abandoned during the period when the Romans conquered the region. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened here during those chaotic and violent years in Greek history. The giant stone jars of Assam, India. Researchers in India have recently discovered 4 fields scattered with enormous stone jars. All 4 of these mysterious sites are located in the state of Assam, where a total of 65 sandstone jars lie scattered across the forest. Archaeologists have not yet determined the exact age of these relics, but they believe the jars were created before 401 BC, meaning they are more than 2,400 years old. This remarkable find was made in 2020, when a research team ventured into a remote, uncharted region of forest that is largely uninhabited. As they made their way deeper into the jungle, searching for traces of ancient civilizations, they began to spot the giant jars rising out of the ground, covered in wild grass and tangled vines. Some of these jars stand as tall as 3 meters and nearly 2 meters wide. Strikingly, these massive jars closely resemble the mysterious stone jars found in Laos and Indonesia, despite the fact that these locations are separated by thousands of miles. What makes the discovery even more intriguing is that the team found human remains inside some of the larger jars, suggesting they may have been used in ancient burial rituals. However, the true purpose of the jars remains unknown, and their presence deep in the forest continues to puzzle scientists to this day. Mount Roraima. To encounter this mountain in the wild feels as if you've stumbled upon a world that time forgot. Emerging from the mist stands a colossal block of stone, soaring 2,804 meters high, with sheer cliffs that seem to have stepped right out of a fantasy novel, or perhaps even the film Avatar. You might half expect to see a dragon flying past, or a towering blue giant descending from the clouds. Yet beyond its otherworldly appearance, Mount Roraima is a place of truly unique wonders. Shaped by millions of years of erosion, the mountain has developed its own distinct ecosystem, filled with strange plants and creatures found nowhere else on Earth. It has often been called the Australia of the mountains, home to rare and mysterious species. For example, carnivorous plants like pitcher plants and sundews thrive here, evolving to consume insects for survival, since the soil is almost entirely devoid of nutrients. For the indigenous Pemen and Kapan peoples, Mount Roraima is sacred ground. They call it the House of the Gods and believe it is inhabited by powerful spirits. One legend tells of a time when the mountain was once an enormous tree, cut down by a trickster god, which gave birth to the many rivers and waterfalls that flow across the region. If all of this wasn't mystical enough, the mountain's summit is shrouded in mist year-round, and its eerie silence has inspired stories of hidden civilizations and lost worlds. In fact, Mount Roraima served as the inspiration for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, The Lost World, where he imagined a land where dinosaurs still roamed. To this day, there is no concrete evidence of prehistoric people ever living atop Roraima, nor has there been enough research to entirely rule out the possibility. The first European explorer to lay eyes on Roraima was Sir Walter Raleigh in 1595. He believed the summit hid gold and treasure, but it would be more than 200 years before explorers actually managed to climb it. Scaling Roraima remains a formidable challenge, as its cliffs are nearly vertical walls rising straight into the sky. The mystery of Mount Vadovara, Karelia, Russia. Are you the type of person who, upon seeing a strange boulder, immediately thinks, "There's definitely something magical about this place"? If so, congratulations. You would get along very well with the ancient Sami people. They too had a deep fascination for mysterious stones. Deep within Karelia, a region that has long stood at the crossroads of history between Finland, Russia, and Sweden, lies Mount Vadovara, a place so enigmatic it could serve as the setting for a sequel to Beowulf, or, at the very least, for a chilling Scandinavian folktale meant to spook children. The Sami have lived in northern Europe since long before the Vikings appeared, and they are considered one of the last remaining indigenous communities in Europe. The ancient Sami believed that Mount Vadovara was a gateway between worlds, a sacred place where shamans could commune with spirits and perform their rituals. They practiced animism and shamanism, believing that everything has a soul, from animals and trees to streams and, most importantly, the stones of the mountain. If you've ever felt like a tree was watching you, for the Sami, that just might have been true. For the Sami, Vadovara was hallowed ground. Shamans would gather here to conduct ceremonies, leave offerings, and, no doubt, share a few classic ghost stories around the fire. If there is any place on Earth where you can feel the presence of ancient spirits lingering nearby, it is surely here. Even today, neo-pagans and spiritual seekers travel to the mountain to experience its unusual energy and marvel at its bizarre, stacked stone. These rocks are the real highlight. Karelia is home to countless ancient cliffs etched with petroglyphs and mysterious boulders near Lake Onega, the second largest lake in Europe. Archaeologists have found 1,200 rock carvings here, some dating back nearly 6,000 years. They are not merely random scribbles, but were deliberately arranged to create striking light effects. People of that era may have traveled from afar just to witness these prehistoric cinemas. Back on Mount Vadovara itself, the slopes are littered with gigantic stones stacked in the most uncanny ways. These are known as Seda. It's as if some ancient civilization obsessed with a cosmic game of Jenga had arranged them. Some stones are perfectly balanced on tiny points, others tilt at impossible angles, and a few look as though they're keeping secrets you'll never know. For the Sami, these Seda are dwellings for spirits, and anyone who disrespects them is said to bring bad luck upon themselves. Scientists suggest that the stones were placed by retreating glaciers over 10,000 years ago, but clearly, no glacier ever played with rocks quite like Animal Crossing. Some even believe that Mount Vadovara may have once been home to a pre-flood civilization, older than the days of Noah himself. The strange pyramids of Shaanxi, China. Shaanxi province in China is home to dozens of archaeological mysteries, the most remarkable of which is a complex of more than 40 earthen pyramids scattered across this ancient land. Unlike the grand stone pyramids of Egypt, the pyramids of Shaanxi are primarily made of packed earth. Today, most of them are covered with grass and vegetation, blending into the landscape as oddly shaped hills, so much so that few people realize these are actually man-made structures. These pyramids serve as the tombs of emperors, generals, and nobles from China's long history. The most famous among them is the Mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China, best known for the world-renowned terracotta army unearthed inside his burial complex. Beyond that, the surrounding region is filled with dozens of other tombs, each one a secret world containing countless ancient artifacts, burial goods, and stories from history that have yet to be fully uncovered. What makes these pyramids even more intriguing is that they are strictly protected by the Chinese government. Very little information is released to the public, and most sites remain closed to tourists. This air of secrecy has only heightened the allure of the earthen pyramids of Shaanxi, turning them into a fascinating subject for researchers and explorers around the globe. The mysterious lights of Hestdalen Valley, Norway. Norway is home to a glowing mystery hidden within one of the country's most remote mountain valleys. Imagine wandering through a secluded Norwegian valley, breathing in the crisp air and feeling as if you've stepped into a Viking legend, when suddenly, a glowing orb hovers before you, as if it's rushing off to a supernatural festival. This is a real phenomenon in Hestilin, where strange lights have been appearing since at least the 1930s. These lights are not car headlights or glow sticks left over from a festival. They appear in bright, white, yellow, or red, and can last from a few seconds to more than an hour. Sometimes, the lights dart across the sky as if in a hurry. Other times, they sway drunkenly, and occasionally, they simply hang motionless in the air, as if all their energy has been spent. In the early 1980s, Hestilin became a magnet for fans of the supernatural. Locals could see these lights 15 to 20 times a week, more frequently than most people drink coffee in that time. However, by 2010, sightings had dropped to just 10 to 20 times a year, perhaps because the lights grew weary of all the attention. No one has ever been able to definitively explain what these lights are or why they appear. The most popular theory is extraterrestrials. If aliens wanted a vacation spot in Norway, Hestilin would surely be the perfect destination. Some have speculated about secret UFO bases hidden in the mountains, or perhaps these visitors simply enjoy a good Viking movie. On the scientific side, some researchers suggest the phenomenon is related to radiation. Elements like radon in the soil might ionize dust in the valley, creating glowing plasma. Even radioactive elements like polonium have been mentioned as possible contributors. Others believe that the quartz rocks in the valley generate electrical charges when compressed, a phenomenon known as piezoelectricity, essentially turning the Earth into a gigantic strobe light. However, this theory hasn't convinced everyone, as it doesn't explain why the lights have distinct shapes or move in such mysterious ways. Since 1983, scientists have launched major projects to study the phenomenon. The Hestilin Project, from 1983 to 1985, attracted UFO researchers from both Norway and Sweden. After 2 years, they still had no definitive answers. Project Triangle, conducted from 1997 to 1998, managed to capture video of a pyramid-shaped light dancing in the valley, yet its true nature remained a mystery. Since 1998, the Hestilin Automatic Measurement Station has kept constant watch, hoping that one day scientific data will finally unravel the secrets of these enigmatic lights. The Mountain Troll Legend of Norway. Do you believe in the existence of giant monsters known as trolls? Get ready, grab your Viking shield and a strong cup of coffee as we dive into one of Norway's most famous and mysterious tales of legendary creatures, the legend of the mountain troll. For centuries, these huge, grumpy, and rather unkempt beings have been an inseparable part of Norwegian folklore. Trolls are said to roam the mountain ranges, frightening unwary travelers, though for the most part, they are believed to leave people alone unless provoked. In December 1942, something strange happened. Someone claimed to have captured a photograph of a real troll. The blurry image was said to have been taken by a Royal Air Force reconnaissance crew in the mountains near Bergen, Norway. For decades, this photo was passed around, sparking endless debate. However, the photograph itself is grainy and difficult to interpret. At first glance, it appears to show a gigantic, shadowy figure standing in the snowy landscape, as if some colossal creature is lurking in the wild, ready to hurl a boulder or pose a riddle to anyone daring to pass. But on closer inspection, many people have argued that the photo was actually doctored or simply a mistake, possibly a scene lifted from a film. In fact, the image bears a striking resemblance to a scene from the Norwegian movie Troll Hunter, leading some to believe that it's just a still from the film, edited to look mysterious. Despite the lack of any real proof, tales and legends about trolls remain immensely popular across Scandinavia. Perhaps it's because we all want to believe in the existence of Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, or even mysterious dinosaurs in Africa, that the legend of the troll continues to live on in the hearts and minds of the people here. The Bokoni Ruins, South Africa. The Bokoni Ruins of South Africa lie scattered across the hills of Mpumalanga province and may once have been part of a vast settlement built by the Bokoni people in the 16th century. This would make them around 500 years old, but some researchers believe the ruins could be far older, possibly as much as 250,000 years old. A staggering difference, though no one has been able to determine their true age with certainty. Most evidence suggests that the Bokoni were, in fact, skilled farmers and engineers. They reshaped the landscape to better manage livestock and improve agricultural productivity, developing irrigation systems across the grasslands. While the exact date of construction remains unknown, the Bokoni ruins are still shrouded in mystery. When were these stone walls built? What was their true purpose? And could they have been part of a forgotten city? To this day, none of these questions have been definitively answered. The mystery of M Cave and the disappearance of Kenny Veach, Nevada, USA. On the 10th of November, 2014, Kenny Veach, a self-proclaimed desert expert, set out in search of the legendary M-shaped cave and vanished without a trace. Just a few months earlier, Kenny had discovered a cave with an entrance shaped like the letter M in the Sheep Mountains, about 40 miles north of Las Vegas. Kenny was known for his habit of hiking alone, never using GPS or a map, relying only on simple survival gear. Yet, he always returned safely. In a comment on a YouTube video about Area 51, Kenny recounted that he had hiked countless times through remote mountain areas. Few dared to enter, even amusing himself by playing with rattlesnakes. However, the first time he entered the M-shaped cave, he experienced an intense, inexplicable vibration throughout his body and was so overwhelmed with fear that he fled the site. He named it M Cave because its entrance resembled the letter M. Not one to give up easily, Kenny made several attempts to return and relocate the cave, but each time he failed to find the entrance. Determined to solve the mystery, on the 10th of November, 2014, he set out once more, this time bringing a handgun. He left his car at Jomay Canyon and hiked into the desert, but after that day, Kenny Veach was never seen again. When he did not return as usual, his girlfriend contacted the authorities. All that was ever found was Kenny's cell phone, discovered near the mouth of a vertical mine shaft. There were no other clues. Nearly a decade has now passed, and no one has found Kenny Veach or determined the location of the mysterious M Cave. The disappearance of Kenny and the enigma of the M Cave remain among the strangest unsolved mysteries in Nevada. The Hermit Cave of Milliken Dalton, England. Hidden among the hills of the Lake District lies a mysterious cave that once served as the home of an unusual hermit. The story of this hermit and his cave begins at the end of the 19th century with the name Milliken Dalton. Milliken Dalton was born in 1867. After his father died, he moved to London at the age of 7 and later worked as an insurance clerk. By middle age, Milliken had grown weary of city life and relocated to the Buckinghamshire countryside, building himself a wooden cabin for the winter and camping outdoors in the summer. In the 1920s, Milliken withdrew completely from society and moved into a disused cave deep in the wilderness. He baked his own bread, sewed his own clothes, and lived entirely self-sufficiently. Still, he was not completely cut off from the world. From time to time, he would walk into town dressed in his homemade garments to buy coffee and tobacco, and for a while, he even worked as a walking guide. In a 1941 newspaper article, Milliken Dalton, then 73 years old, spoke passionately about his love for nature. He said he slept little, often lying awake to listen to the birds, the stream, and the distant cry of foxes at night. Milliken Dalton died of pneumonia in 1947. After his death, his cave was forgotten. All that remained was a small plaque bearing his name on the wall of his old hut in Lawn, while the cave itself was left abandoned. Overlooked in the aftermath of the war, and by a society with little interest in the eccentric life of a hermit. Today, Milliken Dalton's cave has been rediscovered in Bardale Valley. It is such a remote spot that even in modern times, there is no road to reach it. To get there, you must walk from the village of Rostwaite, following the river, passing the ruins of Castle Crag, and traversing a network of dark, awe-inspiring caves to arrive at the place where Milliken Dalton lived for 40 years. The conspiracy theory of the faked moon landing. It's been more than 50 years since Neil Armstrong took one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But did he really do it? Or was it all just an elaborate performance? There are still many people who believe that Neil Armstrong was really walking across a film set in the Nevada desert, not on the surface of the moon. In December 2021, a video began circulating online, claiming to be leaked footage from WikiLeaks that proved the 1969 moon landing was staged. The video spread quickly across popular conspiracy theory forums, from BitChute to Rumble, and at first glance, it looked convincing. But was it real? Absolutely not. NASA's astronauts were not bouncing around on a Hollywood soundstage in their spacesuits, dodging boom mics or cables like in a movie. Most of the evidence in this video was actually just behind-the-scenes footage from a 1978 film called Capricorn 1. That film is about faking a space mission. But these scenes have been shared online as if they're leaked NASA footage. It's like using the movie Shrek as proof that talking donkeys really exist. For example, at the start of this viral video, there's a shot of a man looking into the camera, which actually appears 2 minutes into the Capricorn 1 behind-the-scenes footage on YouTube. WikiLeaks does have a long history of publishing genuine materials, from government secrets to top-secret documents, but they have never posted anything related to the moon landing being a hoax. I checked their website, their social media accounts, even the deepest corners of the internet, and found nothing. The only thing remotely close to a leaked moon landing video is just a Frankenstein's monster of Capricorn 1 clips mashed together with random astronaut training footage. But that isn't real. This is not the smoking gun that conspiracy theorists have been waiting for. Conspiracy theories about the moon landing have been around since the event itself. Even in 1969, some people thought landing on the moon was just too abstract to believe. 2 years later, the James Bond film Diamonds Are Forever poked fun at the idea in a satirical scene, but the theory truly exploded in popularity after Capricorn 1 was released in 1978. And then there was Bill Kaysing, a former NASA contractor, who self-published a small book in 1976 called We Never Went to the Moon. This odd little book, by someone who had actually worked with NASA, laid the groundwork for all later moon landing conspiracy theories. NASA has stated that it took nearly 400,000 employees and contractors to put Neil and Buzz on the moon, but it only took one man like Kaysing to plant the idea that it was all an elaborate hoax, and people have believed it ever since. Kaysing worked for Rocketdyne from 1956 to 1963, but in his book, he claimed that it was all a lie. He offered reasons like, there are no stars visible in the photos taken on the moon, there's no blast crater beneath the lunar module, and the shadows in the images look just like they're on a soundstage. Until his death in 2005, Kaysing insisted it was all fake. Right up to his last day, he maintained that the moon landing was just a television show produced by NASA. If he had been lying, you'd think he would have admitted it before he died, but he never did. The 1,947 alien autopsy footage. Do you remember the alien autopsy video? That blurry black and white film from 1995, showing people in medical hazmat suits examining a creature that looked like a distant cousin of E.T.? For a while, this was one of the biggest UFO bombshells ever released until it was exposed as a hoax. But now, everything seems to be changing. The only leaked alien autopsy footage ever seen might actually be the real thing. Ray Santilli is the man behind this film. Years ago, he admitted it was a hoax, but now he has changed his story, insisting that the footage was genuine from beginning to end. To back up his claim, Santilli recently released a never-before-seen photograph, which he says was taken from the original alien autopsy film. According to Santilli, the whole story began in 1992 when he was working on a documentary about Elvis Presley. While gathering old footage of Elvis, Santilli met a random cameraman in Cleveland. This man approached him and said, "Hey, do you want to see something even stranger than Elvis in the 1970s? The cameraman turned out to be a former military operator who had filmed the alien autopsy after the 1947 Roswell incident. Of course, Santilli was curious. Who wouldn't be? Santilli says that after 2 years of negotiations, he finally obtained the original film reel, only to discover that it was completely ruined and unusable. The footage was real, but it could no longer be viewed. So, he decided to reconstruct everything. In a move straight out of Hollywood, Santilli and his team recreated the entire sequence. When they released the new version in 1995, they completely forgot to clarify that it was a reconstruction, not the actual alien autopsy film. Are you confused yet? Many people were. In the end, Santilli saw the original footage, then recreated it because the tape had been destroyed. And now, in one final effort to convince everyone he's telling the truth, he's released a frame supposedly taken from the real film, not from the reconstruction. Just like that, everything seems to be wrapped up in a neat little bow. Despite all the controversy, Santilli insists that this was never a hoax. According to him, he was only doing what art restorers have always done, except Instead of retouching the smile of the Mona Lisa, he was restoring the insides of an alien. The secret history of gibbeting. Have you ever heard of the punishment called gibbeting? If you think medieval torture devices represent the height of human cruelty, think again. Imagine being sentenced for a crime, hanged until you're nearly dead, and just when you think it's over and you can finally rest in peace, your body is locked in an iron cage and hung up like some sort of gruesome roadside decoration. That is gibbeting, a punishment so extreme that people would remember you long after you were gone. Gibbeting sounds like something out of a dark age, but in fact, it reached its peak in England during the 1700s. The justice system believed that even public executions were not enough of a deterrent. But really, how much more impressive could you get than hanging someone in front of a crowd? One victim of gibbeting was named Parr from Banbury, Oxfordshire. In 1746, he was hanged, locked in a human-shaped iron cage, and left by the roadside to rot straight out of the 1100s. Today, that road is called Old Parr Road, and, surprisingly, it's actually quite pleasant, even though it carries the name of a gibbeted man. Sarah Tarlow is an archaeologist, an expert on gibbeting. She has studied the remaining gibbet cages across England. There are 16. According to her, these creepy iron cages were custom-made for each criminal, meaning some unlucky blacksmith had to measure the corpse before forging their final prison. This also means no two gibbet cages are exactly the same. Some were just big enough to contain the torso, leaving the arms and legs dangling in the wind. Others had a nose slot. In one case, the gibbet cage was reinforced with 12,000 nails just to stop people from pulling it down, apparently. People really couldn't stand leaving their houses in the morning and smelling a rotting corpse. Women did not suffer this bizarre punishment, not because society held them in higher regard, but because female corpses fetched a high price from medical schools for dissection. No matter what their crime, they were usually sent straight to the surgeons. The whole point of gibbeting was to deter crime, but in reality, it didn't work. In fact, people even committed crimes right at the gibbet site. One of the most shocking stories involves a 16-year-old girl who invited her friend for a picnic beneath a gibbet cage. She then poisoned her friend out of jealousy over a new job. She committed the crime right under the biggest deterrent symbol, which is truly ironic. By the 1830s, gibbeting was no longer a deterrent, but a bizarre public nuisance. In 1832, when two criminals were sentenced to gibbeting, the crowd was no longer cheering. They turned rowdy, blocking roads and overwhelming the police, showing that society had lost all interest in seeing corpses displayed on the roadside. 2 years later, in 1834, gibbeting was officially abolished. The Tomb of Gilgamesh. Across the world, Gilgamesh may have been a real person. Was Gilgamesh simply a figure from legend, or was he actually a king? A recent discovery has sparked the possibility that we may be about to find out the truth. The Epic of Gilgamesh has existed for thousands of years. It is a story of adventure, heroism, friendship, battles with mythical creatures, and the quest for immortality. It is remarkable that this story still captivates us today, despite its ancient origins. The character of Gilgamesh is not just a figure from a story. After centuries of speculation, archaeologists believe they have discovered the exact tomb of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is thought to have been a historical king of the city of Uruk in Sumer, possibly ruling during the earliest dynastic periods. Over time, his legacy became myth, and he took center stage in Mesopotamian legend, with his tale recorded on clay tablets in cuneiform script. The ancient city of Uruk is now located in southern Iraq. Uruk was once one of the world's very first cities, a center of innovation, monumental architecture, and the development of writing. It was also the homeland of the legendary king Gilgamesh, who is said to have been buried on the banks of the Euphrates River. In 2003, BBC News reported that German archaeologists had discovered an underground anomaly that could be the lost tomb of King Gilgamesh. The problem was that, at that time, the world was at war and the United States had invaded Iraq, leaving the archaeological team with no choice but to leave. Jörg Fassbinder, of the Bavarian State Office for Monument Protection in Munich, said that surveys at the Uruk site had revealed elements of some kind of structure. He said it could be a tomb because it was located in exactly the right place. The structure was found on a now dried branch of the Euphrates River, and it was the only place the team had surveyed that showed any signs of a man-made construction. Fassbinder drew the world's attention but also emphasized, "Don't get too excited. They certainly found something, but if it turns out to be the tomb of Gilgamesh, that really would be too good to be true. The team used magnetometer technology, capable of detecting man-made objects underground, revealing traces of remaining structures. Unfortunately, the instability forced the group to abandon the research and withdraw. Mapping part of Uruk confirmed many details from the Epic of Gilgamesh, showing that much of the story was based on fact, though exactly how much is impossible to say. Part of the epic recounts a great flood, which is linked to the story of Noah's Ark in the Bible. That's how ancient this narrative is. However, it is still unclear whether Gilgamesh, the semi-divine hero, ever truly existed. Ricardo Eichmann of the German Archaeological Institute stated that this finding remains speculation. The anomaly detected with technology could be anything, but it has certainly attracted worldwide interest. If we could prove for certain that Gilgamesh was real, it would be no different than proving King Arthur of Camelot actually existed. The line between legend and reality is thin in such cases, but this is not the first time that myth has become fact. For a long time, the Xia dynasty, China's earliest dynasty, was dismissed by scholars as mere legend. The land of Punt was also believed to be fictitious, but thanks to archaeological discoveries, these myths have now been confirmed as real. Conspiracy theorists have begun to believe that the tomb could contain legendary weapons, secrets of human origins, or even alien technology, and that the war was just a cover to conceal this. At the same time as chaos swept Iraq, something equally strange happened thousands of kilometers away in Romania's Busegi Mountains. A research team reportedly discovered a giant underground complex with tunnels, mysterious artifacts, and symbols closely resembling ancient Sumerian script. This complex even featured incredible technology, like a force field that initially kept everyone out. When they finally got in, the team reportedly discovered a device capable of projecting holographic images of Earth's history. The Romanian government, along with the United States, is said to have sealed off the area with astonishing speed, faster than you can say ancient alien conspiracy. The details remain vague, just like what happened with Area 51 in the United States, and that place does exist. Many have begun to ask, could there be a link between the Tomb of Gilgamesh, the invasion of Iraq, and the Busegi complex? Both discoveries happened in 2003. Both involved mysterious ancient sites, underground tombs, and symbols resembling ancient Sumerian script, and both were sealed off as quickly as if someone didn't want the world to learn about humanity's forgotten past. The 1973 Mars mission. After the triumphant success of the moon landing, is it really so hard to believe that they secretly sent people to Mars just 4 years later? A leaked video, allegedly from NASA, has surfaced and is claimed to be evidence of a manned Mars mission in 1973. This footage is pure gold for classic conspiracy theorists. The camera shakes, the images are blurry, and the highlight is a sign at the very beginning that reads, "Not for public viewing." As we all know, every piece of real top-secret government footage always starts with a warning like, "Hey, there's classified information in here." The idea behind this secret mission, called Project Red Sunday, is that humans landed on Mars in the early 1970s, but the government kept everything hidden. Why keep it secret? So the public wouldn't know just how advanced America's space technology had become, and of course, because of the involvement of extraterrestrials. On the other hand, some true believers claim that the entire Curiosity rover mission currently happening on Mars is nothing but a giant hoax, because the solar panels on the rover look too clean. Their argument is that if Mars is so dusty, someone must be cleaning the panels regularly. Otherwise, they would have been covered in dirt long ago, especially after all those dust storms. Nigel Watson, author of the Haynes UFO Investigations Manual, points out that stories of secret space missions like this always crop up, and they're always accompanied by leaked footage that looks very convincing. He says this particular story reminds him of the infamous Project Serpo, a supposed alien exchange program where humans actually traded places with extraterrestrials. Sadly, they never let regular people sign up for that one. According to the theory behind Project Serpo, 6 alien beings were recovered from the 1947 Roswell UFO crash, one of whom, designated EB-1, helped arrange for 12 humans to travel to its home planet in the Zeta Reticuli star system. This mission is said to have taken place in 1965, lasted until 1978, and ended with 2 members remaining on the alien planet, 2 dying, and the rest returning to Earth, suffering from severe radiation sickness from Mars. Unfortunately, there is no real evidence for Project Serpo. nor is there any for Project Red Sunday. The missing Apollo 11 footage. NASA accidentally lost the original footage of the Apollo 11 moon landing, the greatest achievement in the history of human space exploration, and to this day, they still haven't been able to find it. Some people suspect that the tapes were never really lost, but rather destroyed to hide what the Apollo 11 astronauts actually saw out in space. In other words, to conceal the existence of extraterrestrials, NASA might have gotten away with it if not for a group of stubborn reporters. In 2006, NPR reported that NASA had somehow misplaced the original footage shot by the camera on the moon. In response, NASA launched a large-scale search, checking everywhere: warehouses, old storage bins, even behind vending machines. Then, just as the search team was about to give up, something miraculous happened. Old documents revealed that the Applied Physics Laboratory had recorded the signals on a few 2-inch test reels. This was the golden ticket, the holy grail of missing footage. The team tracked down a former APL employee who clearly remembered recording the 1,969 moon landing and storing the tapes at the Applied Physics Laboratory. They even found an old machine capable of playing the reels. And because the tapes suffered from what's called sticky syndrome, they even bought a food dehydrator to dry them out. NASA planned to bake the sticky tapes so they could play them on the old device. But when the crucial moment arrived, it was a disaster. The tapes played, but were completely blank. Nothing inside, as if the moonwalk had never happened. And things only got stranger as the search dragged on. After 3 years, the harsh truth came out. NASA had erased and recorded over the original Apollo 11 footage to save tape. The most important video in human history disappeared because NASA ran out of tape and wanted to cut costs. This wasn't home video of Uncle Carl grilling in socks and sandals. This was the moon landing, and they taped over it, possibly with satellite weather forecasts or reruns of Gilligan's Island. Dick Nafsker, the man in charge of the search, tried to calm things down by saying, "I don't think anyone in NASA did anything wrong." Oh, of course, not at all, except for erasing the irreplaceable evidence of the most iconic moment in history. Happens all the time. Conspiracy theorists devoured this news like UFO-shaped pancakes for breakfast. To this day, many people believe NASA deliberately erased the footage to A, prevent anyone from proving the landing was faked, or B, keep the public from finding out what the astronauts really saw on the moon. To make up for the mistake, NASA offered a kind of consolation prize. They hired Hollywood to restore the broadcast of the moon landing. Because when you lose the most priceless artifact in history, the obvious next step is to call in the team that restored Bambi in Star Wars. And it just gets weirder. Those tasked with reconstructing the footage found themselves standing in the middle of a massive government archive, like something straight out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They dug through thousands of tapes and documents, hoping for a miracle. But what they found was that, in the early 1980s, NASA removed tens of thousands of reels from storage, many of which were erased and reused. Not only was the Apollo 11 footage lost, but NASA had wiped over 10,000 reels from the earliest days of the space program, the official reason being to make room for new tapes, as if they'd forgotten to stop by the office supply store. The unofficial reason was to hide something. Because the original footage was destroyed, the restoration team could only work with lower quality television broadcasts. To upgrade the images, NASA hired Lowry Digital, the same team that restored Snow White. They used more than 100 computers to clean up the footage, reduce noise, and improve clarity. The result, the moonwalk looked better, but it could never be as clear as it would have been with the original tapes. UFO sightings in space. If you see a UFO in your backyard on an ordinary Tuesday night, that's one thing. But what if you're out in space and spot a UFO outside your spaceship window? Let's talk about astronauts and the wild things they've witnessed in space, and how NASA and the government have always firmly denied anything that might be considered unusual. You'd think that if anyone were going to see an alien spacecraft, it would be the people floating in space, right? But things aren't always as straightforward as you might imagine when you're orbiting Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. Sometimes, it's hard to tell what's real and what's just your imagination. Science fiction writer Otto Binder once circulated a wild story claiming that Neil Armstrong had seen UFOs during the Apollo 11 mission. However, NASA has been very clear on this subject. In 1970, Robert Allnutt of NASA wrote a letter confirming that after 15 years of space exploration, astronauts still hadn't brought back any evidence of alien spacecraft, not even a blurry photo. And for the record, Neil Armstrong never publicly admitted to seeing a flying saucer, even though other astronauts have. Frank Borman was one astronaut who did mention such an incident. When he tried to set the record straight on the television show Unsolved Mysteries about what he had seen, the producers reportedly told him they might not want him to appear on the show. Exposing alien sightings with real science isn't exactly the stuff of gripping television. Back to Apollo 11 in 1969 and Neil Armstrong. He is said to have seen 2 bright spheres, and so did Buzz Aldrin. Yet, like many other sightings, these glowing objects were quickly explained away as discarded parts from the NASA spacecraft. By this point, you have to wonder, every time an astronaut claims to see something strange, does NASA just tell them to keep quiet and not say a word? Maybe astronauts have to sign some sort of non-disclosure agreement, promising never to reveal the eerie mysteries of outer space. In 2005, aboard the International Space Station, astronaut Leroy Chiao saw a row of bright lights while on a spacewalk. At first, he was excited, but before anyone could shout, "UFO," Chiao realized they were just fishing boats hundreds of miles below. It sounds strange, confusing flying objects with fishing boat lights. Then in 2020, something similar happened on the ISS. Cosmonaut Ivan Wagner posted a time-lapse video of the aurora, capturing what he called guests from outer space in the footage. Even Roscosmos played along, calling it a mysterious phenomenon. For a moment, it seemed like he had filmed evidence of extraterrestrial life. However, the excitement quickly faded when Wagner later confirmed the objects were just satellites. It's as if every time an astronaut sees something odd or manages to record an unusual object, it always turns out to be just space debris. Again and again, disappointment. So, what do you think? Among all these sightings, could any of them truly be from another world? The footprints that rewrite history. This discovery has turned upside down everything scientists once thought about prehistoric humans. Something as seemingly simple as a footprint is now changing everything. You'll be astonished when you realize just how ancient these footprints are. Maybe not from the age of dinosaurs, but close. These mysterious footprints are believed to belong to a group of adults and children who lived in what is now England some 800,000 years ago. That's a time long before modern humans ever truly took shape. The incredible discovery took place in Norfolk, and it wasn't even the result of a planned excavation. Dr. Nick Ashton of the British Museum described the moment he and his team first found the prints. At first, we weren't sure what we were seeing, but as we brushed away the remaining beach sand and cleared off the seawater, it became obvious these depressions were very much like human footprints. In other words, Dr. Nick and his team had stumbled onto what might be the oldest human footprints outside Africa, and perhaps the earliest evidence of human life in Northern Europe. The archaeologists recorded the prints using photogrammetry, taking ultra-detailed images for analysis and measurement before the tide could wash them away. This method confirmed that the long depressions really were footprints of ancient people who walked across this land less than 1 million years ago. But who were these first people? Could they have been Bigfoot? They might have been Homo heidelbergensis, Homo erectus, or perhaps some other ancient human species we haven't yet identified. Further analysis revealed the footprints belonged to a group of up to 5 individuals. Dr. Isabel de Groot from Liverpool, John Moores University, explained that foot length usually makes up about 15% of a person's height. Based on that standard, researchers estimated the people who left the footprints stood anywhere from about 3 feet to over 5.5 feet tall. The group included both adults and children, likely a migrating family. Researchers determined the age of the footprints by analyzing their geological position beneath layers of ice that form the cliffs. The area also contained fossils of extinct animals, ancient plants, beetles, and seashells. It was truly a natural time machine. By reconstructing the environment and comparing it to other known prehistoric landscapes, scientists confirmed that these footprints are genuinely ancient. But what impact this find will have on history books remains unclear. This discovery completely challenges the timeline of when humans first appeared in Northern Europe. Mainstream archaeologists previously didn't believe that prehistoric people could have set foot in Britain so early, as far back as 800,000 years ago, when England was still connected to mainland Europe by land. This means those ancient people could have migrated from what is now France or Belgium. But just imagine what their lives must have been like. Where were they going? Where did they come from? And why did they have to leave? The thug gangs of ancient India. Do you remember the terrifying cult from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? the group who worshipped Kali, performed human sacrifices, and kidnapped children from villages? It sounds horrifying, doesn't it? But the villains in that film actually have real-life origins. In fact, those cults in the movie were inspired by the actual Thuggee gangs. They didn't use magic or rip out hearts like in the movie, but they were murderers and robbers of the old-fashioned kind, and incredibly ruthless. For centuries, these shadowy criminals haunted the highways of India, pretending to befriend travelers before sending them off to the afterlife with no chance of return. Their reign of terror was so effective that it took the full force of the British Empire to finally bring it to an end. The Thuggees were the most dangerous con artists in the world. They weren't just ordinary pickpockets or street thugs. From the 14th to the 19th century, the Thuggees targeted travelers all across northern and central India, especially on the main trade routes in the Ganges Plain. Their method was simple: pretend to be friendly, gain the victim's trust, then kill them and steal everything they had. Their favorite technique was to get close and strangle their victim with a special handkerchief called a rumal, which each thug carried as a sort of assassin's badge. Joining this gang required serious commitment. New recruits had to undergo a strict initiation ritual, swear loyalty to the cult, and promise to kill and rob as part of their dark profession. Things went smoothly for these criminals until the British finally had enough. William Henry Sleeman was the British officer determined to hunt down and eliminate the Thuggees. Sleeman led relentless campaigns to break up the group, gather intelligence, track down members, and convince former Thuggees to become informants. Nothing brings down a secret society faster than a few talkers. The turning point came in 1836 with the Thuggee and Dacoity Suppression Act, making participation in Thuggee a criminal offense. With the help of informants, the British arrested and prosecuted thousands of Thuggees, officially bringing their criminal empire to an end. Strangely enough, after the Thuggees were wiped out, World War I broke out, then World War II, and now the news seems to be leading us toward World War I too. That's just a coincidence, right? The planet Umo. You may have never heard of the planet Umo, but trust me, this is one of the strangest stories out there, full of mysterious letters, questionable science, and a space cult that sounds like it stepped straight out of a 1960s sci-fi movie. This is not an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. The story begins like this. Somewhere in the Virgo constellation, there is a planet called Umo. In the 1960s, a group of people began to receive mysterious letters, supposedly sent by alien beings known as the Umat. These were not your usual take us to your leader messages. The letters were long, extremely detailed, and packed with pseudo-scientific jargon, enough to make even the nerdiest physicist scratch their head. Most of the letters were sent to UFO enthusiasts and occult groups, people who might be thrilled by interstellar pen pals. The movement, known as Umoism, gradually spread in Spain and France, where so many people believed in it that it drew the attention of the mainstream media. Enter José Luis Jordán Peña, a Spaniard who witnessed a UFO in Madrid in 1966. It was a massive round object with 3 legs and a strange symbol on the underside. Right after this sighting, anonymous letters and photographs of the object started turning up in the mailboxes of UFO fans. And before you could say Alien Fan Club, another Spaniard named Fernando Sesma Manzano also began receiving long, typewritten messages from the Umite. The letters discussed deep scientific concepts like network theory, astrophysics, evolution, and magnetohydrodynamics. Some, like French researcher Jean-Pierre Petit, even claimed the letters contained breakthrough scientific ideas that inspired real-world research. Others, like historian Mike Dash, argued that while these letters seemed loftier than most UFO hoaxes, they weren't exactly on the level of Einstein, and were more like something you'd find in a 1960s science fiction novel. One of the weirdest aspects of Umoism was the so-called language. Researchers such as Antonio Ribera and Jean Polian compiled vocabularies used by the Umite. Polian even invented a concept called soneps, which claimed that each character in the Umite language carried meaning, like some sort of extraterrestrial Scrabble game. However, many people argued that it was all just overcomplicated nonsense. Mainstream scientists argued that these bizarre spellings were probably just misspellings or translation errors. Then, decades after the story died down, José Luis, the man who saw the UFO in 1966, admitted that he had made it all up. He claimed that he wrote the letters, faked the evidence, and started the whole UMO movement as one big hoax. He trolled the entire scientific community just for fun. That's what he said, but then again, maybe he was lying about that too. Horyuji Temple and the lizard person statue in Japan. Horyuji Temple, located in Nara Prefecture, is one of the most mysterious historical sites in Japan. From the outside, the temple appears completely ordinary, but it once housed a strange lizard statue. Some people believe that this lizard statue is direct evidence of the appearance of an advanced race that once visited Earth. The temple was once one of the 7 great temples in Ikaruga, founded in the year 607 by Prince Shotoku. According to legend, 1,400 years ago, the prince had an encounter with a lizard-like being from space. After that meeting, he ordered a statue to be built in honor of this creature and placed it inside the temple. The statue truly resembled a humanoid lizard, with arms and legs like a person but a head that belonged to a reptile, with deep-set eyes and a mouth like a lizard. It was also said to be wearing some kind of armor or a suit wrapped around its body. However, in 2017, the statue was removed from public display at this Buddhist temple. Since then, no one knows exactly what happened to it. Thank you for joining us on this journey to the very end. If today's story brought you a sense of wonder, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can continue exploring the world's unsolved mysteries with us. Goodbye for now, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.